Wish I could give you more time than I can because I think you're a cold-blooded killer. I hope you never get out of jail.
Justice was served, and I'm glad it's over, and it just kind of proves to me that he's an animal as he sat there smiling.
Ladies and gentlemen, please step out of the hallway.
Dead. Break out soon, and I will kill more.
I can't think of anything more serious than someone pointing a loaded weapon at a police officer.
I still don't believe that he pointed a gun at a police officer because my son would be dead. You know, police officers don't shoot warning shots. They are trying to shoot to kill.
Jonathan Belton. December 28, 2008. Oak Park, Michigan. A routine traffic stop was about to turn deadly. Officer Mason Samborski, just 28 years old, pulled over a vehicle driven by 16-year-old Jonathan Belton. What happened next would shock the community and raise questions about trying juveniles as adults for the most serious crimes. During that traffic stop, Belton made a split-second decision that would destroy multiple lives forever. He pulled out a gun and shot Officer Samborski, killing the young policeman in cold blood. The officer, who had his whole life ahead of him, was dead. Belton fled the scene, leaving behind a community in mourning and a police force devastated by the loss of their colleague. But this wasn't a case of mistaken identity or accident. The evidence was overwhelming. Eyewitnesses testified to what they saw. Forensic analysis painted a clear picture. This was first-degree premeditated murder. When Belton was arrested, prosecutors made a crucial decision. Despite his young age, he would be tried as an adult. The severity of the crime, they argued, demanded adult consequences. The trial began in 2010, nearly 2 years after the shooting. Belton, now 18, sat in the defendant's chair as prosecutors laid out their case. First-degree premeditated murder. Murder of a peace officer. 2 counts of felony firearm possession. The charges were serious and the evidence was damning. The jury deliberated and returned with their verdict. Guilty on all charges. Then came the sentencing hearing on December 14, 2010. Under Michigan law at the time, the sentence for his crimes was automatic, mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole. But Belton's reaction was telling. As the judge pronounced the life sentence, Belton didn't break down. He didn't show remorse. Instead, he vowed to appeal the conviction.
I know it really happened. I know it really happened. I love y'all to death. And I'm going to see y'all soon.
I hope that one day you regret what you did and realize what you could have done differently. You are alive, and your family gets to see you and talk to you. We don't get to see or talk to Mason ever again. We get nothing but pain and wonderment of what our future could have been. Jonathan Belton, you shattered my happiness, my hopes, and my dreams, and for that I will never forgive you.
His defiance would be tested by time and the legal system. The case went to the Michigan Court of Appeals, where Belton's lawyers argued various technicalities, denied jury instructions, improper evidence admission, expert witness qualifications. But in October 2013, the appeals court affirmed his convictions. It would take until November 4, 2022, nearly 14 years after the crime, for Belton to face a new sentencing hearing. The new sentence, 40 to 70 years for each murder conviction, plus 2 years for each firearm charge. His earliest possible release date is December 27, 2050. He'll be 58 years old, if he lives that long. Unlike Belton, the next man wished he had killed more. Luis Bracamontes. Luis Bracamontes, a Mexican citizen who had been deported twice before, was back in the United States illegally. His criminal history as a convicted drug dealer should have kept him out of the country permanently. But on this autumn day, he was about to embark on a killing spree that would terrorize multiple communities. The rampage began in the Arden Arcade neighborhood, where Bracamontes shot and killed Sacramento County Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver. But he wasn't finished. Moving to the Auburn area, he fatally shot Placer County Sheriff's Detective Michael Davis Jr. and seriously wounded Davis's partner. During this violent spree, he also wounded a civilian and carjacked several vehicles, leaving a trail of destruction across the Sacramento metropolitan area. When he was finally captured after an extensive manhunt, the community thought the nightmare was over. They were wrong. The real horror was just beginning, in the courtroom. Bracamontes's trial lasted approximately 4 years, and his behavior throughout was nothing short of shocking. Charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, Along with attempted murder, carjacking, and weapons violations, he faced the possibility of the death penalty. But instead of showing remorse or even basic human decency, Bracamontes turned the courtroom into a stage for his disturbing performance. He laughed. He expressed no remorse whatsoever. And in the most chilling moments he stated that he wished he had killed more officers.
Ladies and gentlemen, please step out of the hallway.
Dead. I will break up soon and I will kill more.
His outbursts were so disruptive that he was repeatedly removed from the courtroom. On February 9, 2018, the jury found Bracamontes guilty on all charges. When the penalty phase began, the same jury recommended the death penalty. On April 25, 2018, the Sacramento County judge formally sentenced him to death. And how did Bracamontes react to learning he would be executed for his crimes? He reportedly smiled during the penalty phase reading. Even facing death, he showed no remorse, no humanity, no recognition of the lives he had destroyed. But it was Luis's reaction that truly revealed the depths of his callousness. In 2022, the California Supreme Court affirmed his convictions and death sentence. As of today, he remains on death row, though California has had a moratorium on executions since 2019. Like Luis, the next teenager smiled at life without parole. Nicholas Lindsay. February 21, 2011. St. Petersburg, Florida. Officer David Crawford, a 46-year-old veteran of the police force, was responding to what seemed like a routine call, a report of a suspicious person near Tropicana Field. He had no way of knowing that this call would be his last. The suspicious person was 16-year-old Nicholas Lindsay, who had a history of nonviolent offenses like grand theft and trespassing. Nothing in his record suggested he was capable of what was about to happen. When Officer Crawford spotted Lindsay and reached for his notepad, the teenager made a decision that would shatter multiple lives forever. Without warning, without provocation, Lindsay opened fire. He shot Crawford 5 times at close range and incredibly, he didn't miss a single shot. The precision was chilling. This wasn't panic firing or accidental discharge. This was methodical, deliberate murder of a police officer who was simply doing his job. After killing Crawford, Lindsay fled the scene and discarded the murder weapon in a nearby creek. But his freedom was short-lived. The next day, February 22nd, community tips led police to a residence where they conducted a raid and arrested Lindsay. Initially, he provided varying accounts of what happened. But eventually, with his mother Deneen Sweat present and encouraging him to man up and tell what happened, Lindsay confessed to the shooting. The trial began with jury selection on March 19, 2012. Prosecutors argued that the murder was intentional and deliberate. The evidence certainly supported this theory. The defense tried to portray Lindsay as a frightened teenager, seeking a manslaughter conviction instead. The jury wasn't buying it. On March 23, 2012, they found Nicholas Lindsay guilty of first-degree murder. Because he was under 18 at the time of the crime, the death penalty was off the table thanks to a 2005 Supreme Court ruling. Instead, he received life imprisonment without parole under Florida's Law Enforcement Protection Act. But the story didn't end there. In 2013, following the Supreme Court decision that mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles violate the Eighth Amendment, Lindsay's case came up for review. His attorneys hoped for a reduced sentence.
What the court decided was that juveniles, people under the age of 18 that commit a crime, don't have the same mental capacity to think like adults. Therefore, they should be treated differently.
Judge Thane Covert wasn't having it. He looked at the deliberate, senseless, and callous nature of the murder and Lindsay's extreme behavior. While acknowledging mitigating factors like his youth and difficult childhood, the judge found them outweighed by the severity of the crime. The life sentence without parole was upheld. And here's where Lindsay's reaction becomes truly disturbing. During that 2013 resentencing hearing, as Judge Covert announced that the life sentence would stand, Nicholas Lindsay smiled. Court observers noted it was the first time he had smiled since entering the courtroom. Think about that for a moment. A teenager who had just learned he would spend the rest of his life in prison, and he smiled. No tears, no emotion, no apparent grasp of what his future held. Just a smile.
Justice was served, and I'm glad it's over, and it just kind of proves to me that he's an animal as he sat there smiling.
The mother of the next convict had a lot to say about his conviction, but they weren't pretty. Lance Dyer. March 21, 2013. Dayton, Ohio. What began as a routine traffic stop of a stolen vehicle would escalate into a dangerous confrontation that nearly cost a police officer his life. 16-year-old Lance Dyer was the passenger in a stolen Chevrolet Monte Carlo that had been taken at gunpoint the day before. When Dayton police officers Jonathan Sobchak and Jacob Rillo attempted to pull over the vehicle, the driver initially stopped, then suddenly fled, triggering a high-speed chase through residential neighborhoods at speeds reaching 76 miles per hour. The chase ended when the Monte Carlo crashed into a fence in an alley. The driver fled on foot, but Dyer exited the passenger side holding something that would change his life forever: a semi-automatic handgun. Officer Sobchak approached, ordering Dyer to drop the weapon. What happened next occurred in split seconds but would be analyzed for years in courtrooms and appeals. According to police testimony, Dyer turned and pointed the loaded gun directly at Officer Sobchak. Faced with a deadly threat, Sobchak made a split-second decision that likely saved his own life. He fired a single shot, striking Dyer in the finger, causing him to drop the gun. Dyer was then apprehended and arrested. The charges were serious: felonious assault on a peace officer and having a weapon while under disability. Tried as an adult, Dyer was found guilty on all counts. At his sentencing hearing, Judge Dennis Atkins didn't mince words. He emphasized the severity of pointing a loaded weapon at a police officer and noted that Dyer showed no remorse or acceptance of responsibility for his actions. The judge remarked that Dyer was lucky to be here, meaning he was fortunate not to have been killed during the encounter. The sentence: 11 years in prison.
I can't think of anything more serious than someone pointing a loaded weapon at a police officer. You are lucky to be standing here in front of me today, instead of being in the ground.
But it was the family's reaction to this sentence that truly shocked the courtroom. The moment Judge Atkins announced the 11-year term, Dyer's sister had an explosive outburst that created chaos in the courtroom. She became enraged and had to be physically removed by court personnel.
Is there anything further from the state?
Man, that's man, my brother got 13 years old. Stop.
While she wasn't charged criminally, she was banned from courthouse property. Dyer's mother was equally defiant and disbelieving. She publicly stated that the family would appeal, insisting she didn't believe her son had pointed a gun at the officer. Her logic was disturbing but revealing. If he had truly pointed a 9mm handgun at the officer, she argued, the police would have shot to kill, not fired a single shot that wounded his hand. She questioned why her son was still alive, if the allegations were true, completely missing the point that Officer Sobchak had shown remarkable restraint in a life-threatening situation.
I still don't believe that he pointed a gun at a police officer because my son would be dead. You know, police officers don't shoot warning shots. They are trying to shoot to kill. So if you're trying to shoot to kill, then if my son pointed a 9mm at you twice, why isn't my son dead?
Unlike Lance Dyer, the next entry showed some remorse during his sentencing. Jerian Church. March 14, 2023. Cleveland, Ohio. It was a Tuesday morning around 11:30 a.m. when what should have been a routine investigation into stolen vehicles turned into a life-and-death struggle for Detective Mark Barijczuk. 17-year-old Jerian Church was driving a stolen Kia Forte with no license plates, accompanied by two unidentified passengers, near East 30th Street and Cedar Avenue. Cleveland police detectives, investigating a series of Kia and Hyundai vehicle thefts plaguing the area, spotted the suspicious vehicle and attempted an investigatory traffic stop. Church's response was immediate and aggressive. He accelerated away, refusing to pull over. The chase was brief but violent, ending when Church crashed the Kia into a brick pillar at the Cedar Estates apartments. As Church and his passengers fled on foot, Detective Mark Barijczuk exited his police vehicle to pursue. What happened next would forever change the detective's life and his family's future. Church turned back, lifted a firearm equipped with a 50-round magazine, and fired 4 shots at Detective Barijczuk from close range. 2 bullets found their mark, one striking the detective in the arm, another in the thigh, causing multiple injuries and massive bleeding. In those terrifying moments, Barijczuk later testified, he felt darkness surrounding him as he fell to the ground. He thought about death, about his wife, about his 3-month-old son who might grow up without a father. Only the quick thinking of fellow officers saved his life. They applied a tourniquet, preventing Barijczuk from bleeding out, and rushed him to MetroHealth Medical Center. Church fled the scene, but modern investigative techniques caught up with him. DNA evidence, video footage, and phone records linked him to the crime. A warrant was issued on March 24, and he was captured on April 14 by the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Church pleaded guilty on February 5, 2024, to attempted aggravated murder, failure to comply with police orders, improperly handling firearms, receiving stolen property, and having weapons under disability. During the March 6, 2024 sentencing hearing, the full impact of Church's actions became clear through victim impact statements. Detective Barijczuk described the terror of thinking he was dying, wondering if he'd see his infant son grow up.
Someone like you was a coward who couldn't own up to their actions. Instead, you tried to take a shortcut by killing me, which is why I want you to suffer the pains and penalties of your actions.
He should have to sit and sulk and think about the decision he made every single day until he is old and gray because he tried to take an innocent life away.
This is how my life was going to end. Am I ever going to see my wife and my son, who was 3 months old at the time?
His wife Alexandria spoke about the fear of becoming a widow, the sleepless nights, the PTSD, and how Barijczuk couldn't even hold his son when he returned from the hospital.
He should have to sit and sulk and think about the decision he made every single day until he is old and gray because he tried to take an innocent life away. Jerrion's intentions were to kill my husband, all because of a stolen car and a gun.
Judge Michael Shaughnessy sentenced Church to 20 to 25 years in prison, plus a lifetime driver's license suspension and 5 years of probation upon release. But what set this case apart was Church's response during sentencing. Unlike the defiant laughter or disturbing smiles we've seen in other cases, Church offered a brief but direct apology.
I apologize for this happening to you, Mr. Barijczuk. I hope this never happens to you again.
It was a rare moment of apparent remorse in our examination of these cases.